Okay, so we are live recording. So chapter 7, I was thinking about chapter 7 before I clicked record. And what's nice about chapter 7 is that a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to JavaScript is kind of done at this point. We've covered a lot of information in 6 chapters, a whole lot of information in 6 chapters. And I would argue, that a lot of the core main meat of learning vanilla JavaScript has been covered. Um, Chapter 7 then is just a couple of new things that are commonly used, okay? But there's not going to be any new uh, fundamental parts of JavaScript, like the DOM. What is the DOM? Synonyms of JavaScript is the DOM. Like if you're working with JavaScript, you're working with the DOM. You just got it. It's just part of it. Okay, it's so core to learning JavaScript. Working with loops, working with variables, working with functions. All of these things are just pieces. You got to know them. Chapter 7 then is just kind of supplementary then. It's not as core, but it doesn't degrade its importance because working with images and timers, let's talk about its importance. Okay, point being is a lot of the hard work is over when it comes to learning vanilla JavaScript. This will be an easier chapter, I suspect. Okay, but that doesn't mean that it's not important. So why are images and timers important? Well, when I think about vanilla JavaScript, JavaScript has exploded in recent years in popularity because of what it can do on the server side, what it can do on the application tier. But vanilla JavaScript, is not the reason why JavaScript is exploding. We're learning vanilla JavaScript. But what can you do with vanilla JavaScript? One of the main things that vanilla JavaScript does really well is it works with images. And so I think of like all the various image sliders that you see on websites. I mean, image sliders are very common. And very commonly you see image sliders that are, using different JavaScript library, JavaScript image sliders. And so vanilla JavaScript does image sliders. And so working with images in JavaScript is kind of something that is very commonly done in vanilla JavaScript. Okay, and so even when you think of Bootstrap and the carousel that's built into Bootstrap, there's likely a lot of JavaScript that goes into building that carousel. And depending on the site that you go to, there can be all sorts of like transitions and all sorts of animations that can go into working with these image sliders. The fancier JavaScript that you write, the fancier these animations and transitions can be. Okay, so working with images in JavaScript is very common, and then working with timers, that's another very common task that vanilla JavaScript is commonly used to accomplish. And so what is a timer? A timer says, okay, in 10 seconds, then run your code, right? A timer is essentially, it can run JavaScript code based on time instead of like a click, right? Right now we're saying, hey, when the user clicks or when the user changes or when they focus something, that's when you run JavaScript is on an event. Another common thing to do is just say, okay, page is loaded, wait 15 seconds, and then pop up a little help dialog box that says, do you need help? Initiate a chat, after 15 seconds on the page, or so much time goes by and then cause a pop-up window to occur, right? So these are just kind of a couple common tasks that are commonly used. So again, supplementary chapter, it's not one of the harder chapters in my opinion. Again, so we'll work with images and we'll work with timers. And so that's the big takeaway of this chapter. When working with HTML images, it's useful to kind of review the image tag itself. So as you know, the image tag or the image element has source attributes, an alt, a width, and a height. And so these are the common attributes that you're going to find on the image tag. What's nice about these attributes is that they kind of describe themselves and their purpose. Okay, so these are the HTML attributes, and right away we jump into the JavaScript and learn how to work with an image. And so very similar to working with arrays, when you create an object, a lot of times you have the keyword new. And so we'll go ahead and create a variable called image and assign it equal to a new image. Okay, so this is called a constructor. It's constructing an object, if you will. And then right into this concept of preloading an image. Okay, so what is preloading an image? When your web page, more specifically, when your JavaScript goes to change an image tag, it doesn't download the image from the server right away. And so when you're thinking of an image slider that's going to slide from one image to the next, the image is not downloaded by default until it's needed. Why is that necessarily a problem? Well, that can be a problem because if you're going to display an image in a slider and it's not yet downloaded, that can cause some lagginess. That can cause basically your image slider to not be very fluid. Okay, if you've got a nice high-speed internet connection, it might be seamless, but that's not always the case. You got to keep in mind these images can be pretty big at times, unfortunately, and internet connections aren't always the fastest, especially when you get into rural areas. Okay, so the JavaScript by default does not download the image from the server until it needs to, until it's running. Okay, so the benefit of preloading an image, when does a user expect the page to load? Well, they're going to be most patient with your page when they're first going there, right? Now, you don't want that page load to take 10 seconds. You still want it to happen fast. Okay, but most of the time, the user is going to be most patient when the page is loading. And so the concept of preloading an image is to basically have in the script, you run essentially this line right here that I highlighted. When you set the source attribute equal to the image source, that is the moment that the image will download. Okay, so if you do that when the page loads, as the page is loading, okay, generally speaking, that's considered a better experience for the end user. Okay, you want to download your images so that then when the slider is sliding, okay, you get a fluid experience. It's not choppy and having to download images as it's going from one image to the next. Bless you. Okay, so when we do this is just as important as how we do this. Okay, we do preloading images typically when the page is loading. Okay, and so again, the whole idea is you're downloading the images while the page is loading, again, and that's going to be considered a better user experience. All right, now, what is this code here? It says how to preload all of the images referenced by the href attributes of an anchor tag. Wait a minute. Why are we putting images referenced by anchor tags? If you remember from the HTML when we did thumbnails, it does link, yeah, correct. So remember what a thumbnail was? A thumbnail, if we go back to the HTML days, which seems like forever ago, a thumbnail is the idea of a small image that links to a bigger image, right? And so oftentimes you make an image clickable by putting it inside of an anchor tag. So you can write code like this. If we look at what's going on, query selector all, selecting all of our anchor tags. So this variable is going to be an array of anchor tags. We then loop through all of those links. We're looping through all of the links, creating an image for each individual link, and setting the source of the image to be the href attribute of the link. Okay, we'll see how this works. We'll see how this works in a code demonstration. In fact, I'll go ahead and do a code demonstration of what's this is an image swap application that I'll just take some time and demonstrate. Okay, so this is going to be, chapter 7, and I'll just put it in homework. Okay, so we got an empty page, not Bootstrap. This is image swap. Okay, so we've got 4 images, and each image we're going to click, the objective here is to click the thumbnail and then replace this big picture with whatever image that we click. Okay, but included with that comes a heading. We're changing the heading and we're changing the image. Okay, so when we're looking at this, this little bit of code, I'm going to code this up real quick. I can type it faster if I split screen it like this, and I'll just walk through explaining it. We all know what the main tag is for. We know what the H1 is for. The H1 tag, I'm still battling with some of the different extensions that I use. They do a fishing images. I'll do, I like to running images. I'm more of a runner than a fisherman. Whatever you are is fine by me. So, our unordered list, they just give an ID of image underscore list, so or UL. So, very simple markup so far. Our unordered list has an ID of list. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 LIs, so we could do LI times, no, we got 4. We got 4 LIs. Inside of each LI, let's hold down Alt. We're going to have an anchor tag with an href attribute. And so each one has an href and a title. And remember, the title is kind of used. The title is kind of used when you hover an anchor tag. It'll give you like a tooltip. But we can also extract the heading out of the title. So basically, the heading that's going to go inside of our whatever it is going to be, an H2. Again, so what I now need is I need 4 images. I need 4 images. I need small versions of these images and then a larger version of this image. And so let's just go to the old Google machine. Go to images. Actually, why not use pixels, right? We got nice. And maybe I can get actual, it's probably pretty important to have pictures that are roughly the same dimension. So I'm just thinking about dimension. Not sure that I can specify actual dimensions here. That's okay.
You can just like look it up in the search bar.
Say that again?
Maybe if you can just like search it up in like the search bar, like runner like 9 by 10.
Oh, just putting in dimensions here. Kind of a that might be a possibility. Let's continue on, and I'll press through the issues as I come across the sizing issues. So this is JavaScript Chapter 7 homework. Is I believe where I'm at. Let's go ahead and make a new folder called images, and we'll just call this Lady JPEG. Okay. This is going to be man. File save image as man.jpg. And we'll go to these folks. Save image as fellas. Got 2 of them. And we'll call this our serious runner. Wait a minute. So these are all kind of like the same. Longer, not as high. Longer, not as high. I'll keep that going. This is a longer image, wider than it is tall. So then we'll just keep that going. And we'll call this guy save image as shirtless. Okay. So then we can go into our anchor tag, and inside of our anchor tags we're going to have images. So this is how we create our thumbnails. 1, 2, 3, 4. An image tag with a source attribute. We're also going to give our images an alt attribute. All right, so pretty standard. So far. Now, these need to be our thumbnails. Okay, so these images, keep in mind, our thumbnails are our smaller images. When we click on them, they go to the bigger images. So I need to save multiple versions of this, right? I need a big version and I need a small version. Yeah, right?
What does the alt attribute do again?
What does the alt attribute do again on the image tag? So that's going to be the text that shows up. If the image doesn't load properly for whatever reason, that's the text that shows up. It's also for screen readers to describe for accessibility purposes. So it's really important for screen readers. Yes?
You saved your photos in the JavaScript homework section. You're in HTML.
I did save the images into, thank you. So I'll just take that out. Let's open folder location. I saved these in the right place, but I opened up the wrong folder. So let's just copy all this, open the right folder, JavaScript 7. Now I'm in the right place, paste, thank you. So again, on thumbnails, let's go ahead and save some thumbnails, which are going to be the smaller versions of the images. So here's images, and I'll just edit. These are really big images. So again, if I just resize, let's uncheck this, and I'll say 200 by 1. Okay, 200 by 100. It's going to be my thumbnail image size. So I need to do file save as and save this as a separate image. Desktop, here, homework, JavaScript 7. We'll call this fella's thumbnail, fella's thumb. Okay, so now we could see I've got a big image and a small image. Yay. We got a lady, so let's edit, resize. Did I say 200 by 100? File, save as, lady thumb. Man, edit, resize, pixels, 200, 100. Oop, so don't overwrite it. So I need to save man JPEG as man JPEG, but then if I resize it, file, save as, man thumb, and shirtless thumb. Oh, again, I keep overwriting. Don't overwrite. We just save. This is much smaller image here. File, save as. Okay. Back to the code. Inside of our image, let's code our images slash fella's thumb, lady thumb, so we got our 4 images there. Our alt is our description. So 2 fellas, lady runner, man who needs a shirt. Okay, so we've got all that fun stuff. Take a quick glance at it. Okay, so probably need to get rid of the bullets. Probably they are clickable, although they're not going anywhere because they are links, right? We need to get them to display in line. We need to get rid of the bullets, but we have our thumbnails cooking here. Okay. After the unordered list, this is going to be our caption heading. And it's going to basically display the full-size image of the fellas. So it'll say 2 fellas running by default. And then there's a paragraph with an image inside of it. The ID of this image is going to be main image, main underscore image. The first one is going to be the big images, just called fellas, not fella's thumb, just the big image. And it'll have the same alt, which is 2 fellas running. So all this is going to do, we've got our thumbnails, our and basically load 2 fellas running by default. Because this is a pretty big image, I'll go ahead and throw a default height of
I use Wix, except I use my IFBA, it kind of gives it that,
we'll see how that looks. Okay, so clearly the bigger image. You can mess with the dimensions. Maybe we make it a little bit wider. All right, so let's move on to the CSS. So again, if I look here, what needs to be done? We're going to get our LIs to display inline. We'll get rid of the bullets. So what's interesting here is you can inspect and see the LI is actually the tag that's going all across the page. So our LIs are displaying block. So let's target our LIs and tell them to display inline. And let's target our list, which is called image list style type of none. Okay, so now we have our image links going inline, and we've got no bullets. No JavaScript yet, just HTML and CSS. Let's go ahead and put in a script tag. Okay. We'll go ahead and put in our $ function. Okay, document, add event listener, DOM content loaded, anonymous function. You're probably very familiar with this at this point. Okay, so now we're in, the DOM content has loaded. We wait for that, and we're going to preload the images. That's kind of the objective. We're going to target the caption. Now this is selecting an element. So keep in mind this is selecting what element. What has the ID of caption? Go back to our HTML. That's our H2. So this JavaScript variable is selecting our H2. In fact, if I do alert caption, you can kind of see what it does, which it alerts a heading element, right? So you're going to end up working with properties of that to change that. Okay, so let's do another constant. Main image equals target main image. What is main image? That's our big image. So target an H2. Targets the image. Okay. Right?
So like whenever you load preloading the images, is that like a thing that's done like on like most sites, websites?
If they have like image sliders, a lot of times it is recommended to do preloading. Yep. So what we're going to do, we're going to target our ID of image list, which is our UL, I believe. Image list is our UL. And we're going to use query selector all. And we're going to select all of the anchor tags inside of that UL. And here's the actual preloading. Now we're going to loop through our array of image links. Okay, so this for loop Keep in mind, this is an array. It's query selector all, returns all of our anchor tags. So this is an array of anchor tags. We're looping through our array of anchor tags. Each iteration of the loop, each anchor tag can be referenced by this variable of link. So link will change from the first anchor tag to the second anchor tag to the third anchor tag to the fourth anchor tag. Right? So link is a variable that is changing every iteration through the loop. Okay, that's how this for of loop works. It just, you got a collection of links. Each time through the loop, you got a single link from the collection. This is where we use our little bit of JavaScript that we learned. Constant image equals new image. We set the image dot source equal to the link href. Now link href. Our links don't have hrefs yet. I got to fix that. What we link to, notice what we show here is the small image, but we link to the big image. So I need to say images slash fellas, images slash lady, images slash man. Because again, you click on the small one, it shows the big one. So we link to the big one. So the link href of the first link is the big fellas. So the first time through the loop, we preload that image, the big image of the fellas. The second time through the loop, we preload the next image, then we preload the next image. Still inside of our loop though. Still inside of our loop. Now we're going to attach an event handler for the link. We're going to say link, that individual link, add event listener, click. EVT is our event object. So normally when you click a link, it just navigates to that link. Well, we don't want our links to navigate us anywhere anymore. We want our links to instead, show an image. So we need to prevent the default. The default behavior of a link is to navigate. We're not going to do that. We're going to instead, change the main image. So up here is our main image. Main image dot source is the link's href. Okay, so let's talk about what this is going to do. This line targets our big image and sets the source attribute, right? That's what we learned about the HTML DOM specification, right? Sets the attribute of source equal to the link's href. Well, what's the link's href? So the image source is now equal to the big fellas.jpg. So this line displays the big image. We can then set the alt main image.alt link.title. Okay, do our links have titles? These are going to be our alt. So these don't have to match. They're just kind of used. This alt is going to be used in our heading, and the title is going to be used as the alt of our image. So whatever we want the alt of the image to be, it could be two guys, a lady, a man, and shirtless guy. Okay, so again, how is this title attribute being used? It's being used as the alt attribute in our big image. That's what that line does right there. Now we're going to work with this caption variable. So here's our variable called caption. We set the text content of the caption to be the link title. Keep in mind the link title is what we set here. Caption was our H2, so we're changing the H2's text to be the link title as well. I think I said that incorrectly a little bit ago. But here's the correction. The correction is our H2 is going to be also what's in that link title. The last thing here inside of our event listener is to prevent the default. Again, by default, links navigate you to a page. This should stop that behavior. And that ends the for loop. That adds the ends the add event listener. That's the end of our script. So if I did this perfectly, which I probably didn't, this will work. But as I'm a human being, I make mistakes. I kind of expect it. Okay, correct. So that's good. So it's not working as intended. So why? So let's inspect. Let's put in a breakpoint. First off, cannot read properties of null. Query selector all. So it does not like my ID of image list. It's image underscore list, right? So let's fix that. So it pointed out image hyphen list does not equal image underscore list. So that's good. There's one typo. Let's fix that. Reload. Inspect. Console. No errors on the console. And so what's not happening is this event prevent default. So this runs when the page loads. Let's put a breakpoint in here and just make sure that this is iterating through all of our links and doing everything that I would expect it to. So I need to watch this run when the page loads. Yep.
Is it because you didn't resize the other images like you did the first one? So, because they are going up their full size.
Well, what I'm noticing see this link.add event listener, it's never even going there. So I need to figure out why line 17 does not appear to be executed. So let's click, 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 click. Just watching this through real quick. So here we got a node list of 4 anchor tags, which is good. We're looping through each anchor tag. And Are you saying I didn't resize the? I do have the two images here.
Yes, but when you go into the attributes for the certain stuff, not well for that link, but you've also modified the height and width.
This one here.
Yeah.
It's a good time for a break. You guys take 5 minutes. I'll find my bug. Come back. I should have it fixed. Okay, as everyone's still here, found the typo, if you will. Call it a bug induced by typo. What it was, the same typo that I made earlier is I'm used to doing hyphens. So it's image underscore list and main underscore image. And for whatever reason, my default is to hyphenate things. And so I did the same thing here with a hyphen instead of an underscore. And so I fixed main underscore image. Okay, and once I fixed that, all of a sudden, the event listener would work. The reason the event listener wouldn't work before is it didn't know what main image was. Main image was selecting, it was null. In other words, this variable right here was null, therefore it couldn't attach an event listener and do anything with it. So that's all it was. Long story short, I make the same mistakes as many of you, many times, right? So now our image swap application is working. Again, the heading. Where's the heading coming from? The heading is coming from the title of the anchor tag. That is done right here. Right? We set the text content of the caption. The caption is an H2. You could alternatively, targeted the child and done the text content of the child. But this gets the job done. What's new in this? I mean, let's talk about what's new. The actual couple of lines of code that's new in Chapter 7 is really just right here. Have we done this before? Yes. Have we used query selector all before? Yes. Have we learned about for of loops? For of looping through arrays? Right? For in looping through objects, for of looping through arrays. Yep. This is a new line. This is a new line. Adding event listeners. Canceling the default behavior. Working with these properties of the different elements, right? This is an image, so we can work with the source property. This is a link, we can work with the href property, right? So you've at least had exposure to all these different things. What's doing the heavy work is this for loop, right? This is preloading the images so that they basically, the images are going to download as soon as the page finishes loading, right? So what, again, the benefit, what's the benefit behind all of this? Your image slider is going to slide fluidly. It's not going to download images when you click the thumbnail. It's not going to wait for the image to download. It should just happen pretty seamlessly. Okay, in which case it does. Okay, now, this is good. This is really beneficial because now you've all seen a little bit of what it takes to code an image slider. Okay, this is about the most primitive image slider that you can code. Okay, this kind of looks like an image slider out of the 90s. Okay, image sliders today are fancier, right? So if we go to Bootstrap and we look up the carousel, let's look at the carousel, right? Well, first off, the carousel has more of a transitioning effect. Okay, one thing that we didn't talk a lot about in CSS are transitions and um, and so transitions, there's a CSS transition property that can basically be used to create animations. And so built into CSS, you've got these ability to transition thing. So what do you use? You use JavaScript to initiate a little CSS transition. And so these sliders, you can imagine these are just images. These little things right here, I'm sorry, they're buttons. These are buttons, right? These buttons are wired up to a click event. That click event causes some sort of transition to happen with CSS. All right, and that's how you get more modern looking JavaScript carousels. So a lot of people came together, different people decided, hey, I'm going to write some JavaScript and I'm going to make, a JavaScript library, if you will, of just some built-in carousels, right? So you don't have to reinvent the wheel here. You don't have to make your own JavaScript image slider. If you want to have a fancy transitioning image slider, I would recommend a simple Google search. Something like the best JavaScript carousel libraries. Look through their documentation and figure out how to get these sliders onto your page, right? And these are going to give you much more modern looking JavaScript image sliders without having to reinvent the wheel, right? Because clearly this is not as nice as this. Okay, so we can dive into any one of these. The important thing is to look at the documentation, right? So you're going to go to the API, and you're going to see what is the HTML, what is the CSS, what is the JavaScript to use these image sliders, right? So every one of them is going to work a little bit differently, and so that's why you just got to dive into them and do some research. Most of them, though, pulling it back into the lecture, what are most of these going to take advantage of? Preloading images. How do we preload images? These two lines right here. Right? That's the important piece of this chapter. Back to the PowerPoint as I close my... Any more questions on this before I move on? Right? We've all seen the HTML, very minimal CSS.
So,
Yep.
There's that const image equals new image parentheses.
Yes.
That image is like a method of what
Yes.
creating a new image.
Yes. So let's talk about this line right here. Good question. Line 13, on the left of the equal sign is nothing new. Obviously, you know how to create a variable using the keyword const. On the right-hand side, we have a new image. Right? This creates a new image object. Keep in mind that objects have properties and methods. That's all an object means. It's just a thing that has both properties and methods. So this image would have properties and methods. Okay. This piece right here is a method call. You're calling a method. The method is called image. It's a particular method called the constructor. Basically, that constructor builds the image and basically creates space for it in memory. So this creates an image object in memory on your computer.
So, okay, but the for loop says let link of image links. and then it goes to const image equals new image.
Yeah, let's look at the for loop. So this for loop is looping through all of our anchor tags,
Okay.
right? This is an individual anchor tag, and anchor tag obviously is a link.
Okay.
So if we've got 4 anchor tags, the first anchor tag being this one right here. So the first time through the loop, link is a JavaScript object that references this anchor tag. We create an image, and we set that image source equal to that link's href. Well, again, we said that link's href, which is this one right here.
So that second line is important too.
Yeah.
Setting the image.
Yeah. So this is preloading. What this loop loops 4 times, and so these 2 lines right here create 4 images. And set those 4 images source attributes to be what they are.
It just stores it in the browser's memory.
Stores it in the browser's memory.
Right.
Again, let me kind of close my extra windows, Back to the slideshow, pull this back over. Okay, so that was half of the lecture, literally, was how to preload images and the importance of preloading images. Now the other half is dealing with timers. You see timers in use all across the internet, right? You go to a web page, 10 seconds go by, and all of a sudden something pops up on your screen, right? Or maybe you click a button, and then 10 seconds after you click the button, something happens, right? I think if you go to Inside Rankin, sometimes these little whir on lines, I like to use this as my example. Oh, you can't see it on the screen. A lot of times these little help bots, they don't show up when you first go to the page. These little help bots will wait 10 seconds or wait 20 seconds, right? Because they want you to use the page before you ask for help, right? So maybe it's whatever the timer is, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, I don't know. But you get the idea. A lot of times, especially in pop-ups, and I realize we haven't exactly created pop-ups yet. You create pop-ups with JavaScript. You see them all the time. You got pop-up blockers. Everyone likes to use pop-up blockers to stop the people writing JavaScript from giving pop-ups, right? But a lot of times pop-ups happen on timers, right? So you go to the page, 10 seconds go by, pop-up window occurs. There's really there's 2 functions that we're going to learn about here. There's something called a timeout, and a timeout is just a timer that happens once. So you wait for 10 seconds to go by, and then you run some JavaScript code. Right? So there's timeouts, and then there's intervals. Intervals, like the name implies, intervals happen recurringly, many times. So an interval says run this code every 5 seconds. And so intervals happen over and over and over again. Okay, so those are the kind of the 2 important things there. The difference between a timeout and an interval. So you can kind of jump around here. So again, there's really not, last chapter, we learned all these new properties and all these new methods. And there's really not a whole lot of new code here, just more theory and how you can work with these things. So let's take a glance at a timeout. Notice the set timeout function takes 2 arguments or 2 parameters. The first is, what method are we going to call? What function are we going to call? And the second is, how long are we going to wait to call it? Right? So we could say, okay, you click the button. When you click the button, we're going to call this set timeout. And then 10 seconds after the button clicks, then we run some code. Okay, and so that's the simple demonstration that we'll do, just to demonstrate setting a timeout. All right, so let's kind of come back into here. Let's make an empty page. Okay, and again, we're just going to demonstrate a timeout demo. Let's go ahead and write a script tagged. I can't hardly stand not having a bootstrap button. As simple as that is. Let's copy some bootstrap CSS into here. And let's copy some bootstrap JavaScript. And now let's have a bootstrap button that says class of button success button large. Okay, so we've got a simple green button, right? Nice big green bootstrap button. So let's get into the JavaScript. Add event listener for DOM. Let's wire up a button click. So to get a button click, we're going to target our way to tick with our button submit like so. Add event listener click. Anonymous function, curlies. Wait a sec, hold on. Click. There we go. Okay, back to this. Let's get the HTML loaded. Pull up the console. Okay, it says submit button, so we need to change its button type of button. Right, so that's not happening to us anymore. Refresh, submit, we got the console log clicked. Okay. So timeouts again, the code is not, it takes more setup, it takes more time to set this up than it does to show how to call set timeout. Set timeout takes a function and a delay. So the function can be anonymous function, or it can be like an arrow function, or it could be a named function. I think it's pretty easy to make it a named function. So let's go ahead and make a named function here. Function do something, console.log do something. Okay, so now we're going to do a console.log do something. Set timeout, do something in 1 second. So what, again, pretty simple method call, right? It says call the function do something after 1 second. If you want to make it take a little bit longer, it'd be 3 seconds. These are milliseconds, right? So 3,000 milliseconds is 3 seconds. Let's watch how the timeout works. Open the HTML. Here's our timeout demo. Console, click the button. Waited 3 seconds. Reports do something. Now, of course, can you do more than just a console.log? Of course. The whole point, you know, you set a timeout to do whatever you want it to do. Okay? You call a function that pops up a window. You call a function that displays a help chat bot. You call a function that does whatever it needs to do. Right? Next time you're on Amazon.com and you know you're just sitting there for 5 seconds and all of a sudden something new happens, probably JavaScript, probably a timeout or an interval. Okay? Now, the only other thing to kind of mention about this, you might see a variable set equal to. So you could call this, you know, a timer. And so you might see something like this where you've got this global variable. You set the timer equal to the set timeout. What this allows you to do is say, hey, you know, if some condition exists, you can do a clear timeout on the timer. So if, I don't know, if x is less than 100, then what this does is you're no longer going to call do something in 3 seconds. Okay, so now I guess you're not going to do the clear timeout here. I'm sorry. Let's do this, you know. We would do this here. If x is less than 100, then we're never going to call our timer. So timers run code based on time. You can cancel that default behavior. You don't, it could say, okay, if this condition exists, don't run this code. Don't run this timer, right? And that's the whole point of set timeout versus clear timeout. Clear timeout just, again, stops that function from ever being called in a certain condition.
So whenever you like sit on a page for too long, like and it says you're gonna log you out in like 200 seconds or whatever, is that a timeout?
There could be, yeah, based on inactivity, if you're not interacting with the page. Hey, are you still here? Netflix. Hey, are you still here? You know, do you want to continue watching? What Pandora, right? Spotify. Are you still listening? You know, timeouts, right? Not interacting with the page. Run some code based on a timer, right? Whether that's a JavaScript timer or some timer in some other language, it's the same concept. Let's clear that up. So, okay. So function do something. What's pretty simple then? What's the difference between timeouts and intervals? Set interval, again, timeout one time, interval multiple times. So here I'm going to call do something every 3 seconds. Function says I am doing something. Now, once you click the button, wait 3 seconds. I am doing something. I am doing something too. You see, you can't see it. This little number right here, it's just increasing.
Is that once you click the button, it started doing that?
Yeah. Why is that? Why did it wait till a button click? Because I have it right here to do it on a button click.
Gotcha.
Right. So this timer didn't call set interval until I clicked the button.
But you can just have it on DOM content load.
You could. Yeah. You could just have this on DOM content load. And now, I didn't have to click the button, but if I look at my console, you can see this number is just gonna, so that function's running. Every time that function runs, it's logging something. again, what can you do here? The possibilities are limitless. The point is to show you how to do something based on time. Right? Creative minds can go nuts with this. Creative minds can go nuts with this. So I've seen, video games. I've seen, all sorts of things done with timers.
Well, like when you play a video game and like the enemy comes out after a certain amount of time, that's a timer.
Yeah, every half a millisecond, whatever, the enemy's position is moving, right? So the position of an element is moving based on time.
Oh, I see.
Or a fireball's coming towards you, time to jump. There you go. So again, the demonstration doesn't have to really be any longer than that because, I guess I could. Okay, so let's set an interval unless they click a button. All right, we'll do that. So function do something. So here I'm going to call do something in 5 seconds. Let's wire up. So if the user clicks a button, we'll cancel that, right? So document.get element by ID button submit. Add event listener, click. Still adjusting with this new plugin. It's pretty. I owe myself one more curly parenthesis semicolon. Okay, so the DOM loads in 5 seconds. It calls do something unless I click the button. So if I can click the button within 5 seconds, it will never do a log. Or whenever I click the button, maybe it does it a few times. Let's keep this doing that every 2 seconds until I click the button. You're going to run this every 2 seconds until you click the button. Is what the clear interval is going to do for us. So as I demonstrated before, I'm doing something. That counter is going up. Okay, now that should stop it. No, it did what it's supposed to do. So a condition happened, an event happened, whatever can stop. Yes, sir.
So in the case of this, like with inside of rank, and after you do something to stop the interval, there's a way to reset it. I guess some way to start the timer again.
Yeah, you can imagine any time the user's moving the mouse, reset the counter. Yeah, so anytime they're interacting with the page, set the timer back, over. So at the beginning of all your functions, whatever. Yep, or mouse move. Yeah.
Could you set like a timer for every 5 seconds, and then every time the timer goes through, you have a loop that log in the console that it's been 5 seconds?
So are you essentially saying, here's our timer, do something every 5 seconds. And then inside of the function, you're just doing a log that says it's been 5 seconds? Yeah?
I guess it's kind of what we've been doing.
That's what we've been doing. Yeah. Waiting 5 seconds is the hard part. There it goes.
Then would there be a way to
I mean, inside of do something, just like any other function, you could have loops, you could have if statements, you could have, images change, right? Change your image source every 5 seconds, right? So I'm thinking of like ad bars, right? You got different banners for different advertisers, and you want to change the image every 5 seconds. You get an image swap just happening automatically every 5 seconds.
That's what you're saying. Like, let me make it say like it's been 5 seconds. It's been 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can probably do that. Yeah, you can.
Let's do a simple image swap based on time. Image with an ID of main image. So let's go ahead and create this. Using a if else statement. So we'll set you could preload our images. You should preload your images, but let's set count. Main image dot source equals images slash okay, so basically do something is going to call every 2 seconds. We've got this variable called count. We started off at 0. We set if count is 0, we put it to that source. Let's glance. So it should wait. Okay, so got it. So now else if count is 1, this is no longer fella's thumb, this will be lady thumb. Else if count is 2, main image dot source equals images man. Each time I'm increasing count, right? We got 4 images, 0, 1, 2. We'll do a final else. The last one is, and what I'm going to do on this last else, I'm going to set the count back equal to 0, right? So when I set count back equal to 0, it'll then loop back up to the beginning.
Where do you set
Main image is just a selector that selects the image tag. Let's see how this works. Every 2 seconds, we got an image swapping. Thanks, Ferris. Good assist. So we go from these two to the girl, to the man, to the shirtless, back to these two.
So how does the count change?
How does the count change?
Is it like
the count changes by 1 every time it hits this if statement. It runs this, and then it increases count by 1. So count changes by going up 1 every time. It goes from 0 to 1, from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3. And then once it hits 3, it'll run this one and reset count back equal to 0.
So does the count, is it saying like the count changes every 2 seconds?
Yeah, every 2 seconds, we call this function,
And then it'll run the,
and then it runs this function and changes count every 2 seconds.
Oh, I see. It's not going from one if to the if else to the else if, but it's like running the function over and over.
Yeah, we can insert a breakpoint. And what we'll see here, if I go to timeout.js, and I'm going to put, okay, so if we look at count right now, let's put a watch on count. Okay, count is 0. So we can go through here, we could see count is 0. Oh no, I'm sorry, count is 1. I thought it said 0, it said 1. What's happening is this is running over and over every 2 seconds. So this, now we could see count is 1, now count is 2, 2 seconds, count is 3, 2 seconds, count is 4. So I need to slow it down so you can see it more clearly. Let's change it to run every 5 seconds. Refresh the page. 5 seconds. Okay, we're starting count to 0, so it changes the image. And it increases count to 1. Count is now 1. It runs that one. Count was 2. Now count is 3. It runs the else. Else sets it back to 0. Count is 0. Count is 1.
so like every 5 seconds it'll go to the function, but because the count
Is changed in the function. Yeah.
It's almost like a loop, but you're not looping.
It's almost like a loop, but you're not looping. Because it's running code repetitively.
Yeah.
But you're running it based on a timer instead of...
So then what if on that last else you didn't put the count back to 0? Would it just stay at that last one?
Yeah, okay, good question. If you didn't reset count, it would just stay at that last one. That's a good guess, and you're correct. It's doing it every 5 seconds, so it's going to run slow. But you'll see it'll cycle through once, and it'll never reset back to the beginning. So that's the last photo. You could wait forever, and it'll never change.
What if you wanted that to happen whenever, if you wanted it to run whenever you click the button?
If you wanted to run do something when you click the button, I would take this code out of here and put it in right here. So now our images aren't going to start rotating every 2 seconds until we click the button. So you can wait, it's not going to do anything until we click the button. And click. And then there it goes.
Now, would there be a way to, on the very first one, the very first image that shows up?
This one right here?
Yeah. Have that show up right away when you click it, and then every 2 seconds the other ones will show up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so, okay.
Isn't that kind of what it's already doing?
So the question is, yeah, so do it right away. So instead of here, I would set this line of code right here, because as soon as you click, that main image shows up. And then I would set count equal to 1. That way it'll go to this one next in 2 seconds.
Is there a way to stop the interval from continuing?
Clear interval. Clear interval is how you stop it. So again, you could do clear interval on an event. I did that. Yeah. So click it, the image shows up right away, then you wait 2 seconds and it changes.
Can you set the interval to like 1 millisecond to see what?
How fast can it go? You know, I don't know. So let's do something. This will probably break it. You can get into some pretty fun trolly stuff into here. It just, I guess, you can't. Yeah, it's changing too fast to even. I don't. I mean, it doesn't work, right? I mean, how fast can it go? Is kind of the question. Like if we say 500, can we see it?
Wait, did you change the?
Oh, I didn't set that back, did I?
Yeah.
I didn't say that back. There we go. So let's change it back to 1 since we're having fun and checking this out. Just looks like a glitch, right?
That's pretty fun. I'm wondering if you could like actually make an animation using different images in the timer like that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like
Again,
maybe-
creative minds go nuts.
Yeah, make like a video or something. Flip book. Yeah.
All right. That really is the end of the lecture, right? I mean, this is just other code demonstrations that demonstrate those same concepts. But that's that. So that was a shorter one.